Just another little project. I bought 2 of these 2-box kits to make up this one, and you know, some of the things that I've done to make it this way is obviously these bars here that are on the side of the racks are longer than the normal ones. So of the 2 racks that came with the kit, I took off all the long bars and made this rack. So the vertical posts on the sides are longer than normal. The one over on that side is also longer. So I took the long posts off the vertical posts off both racks, made up 4 long vertical posts. Took off the 2 longer front posts off the second rack to get 3 long horizontal sections. So I've made one rack with all the big poles, and then I've got this second rack over here which is all the smaller sections put together, which I have no idea what I'm going to do with those. But that enabled me to put, you know, have more rack space basically to put all of the things that I'm using on there. Gives you a bit more space. It's probably a foot longer, maybe a little more. And the taller vertical posts allows you to put the modules on nice and high, so they don't interfere with the drums. So with that, there were 2 kick pads, 2 14-inch kick pads, one for each kit. One of the kits was a Mark II and one of them was a Mark I. So the pads are slightly different. So this pad has no front to it. It's just like all the Mark II pads, it's just got on this side, on the batter side, it's got the mesh head, and on the front side here it's got nothing. You can put your hand in there's nothing to that. And so it's sort of like a big Mark II tom, I suppose, mounted as a kick. The Mark I tom kick pads has this as a kind of a batter, or what emulates a batter head, I suppose. So it's a metal outer on the front and the mesh head on the back. So I had been using this over here on this snare stand as a 3rd floor tom, which give me, you know, 10, 12. So this was the snare pad off the second kit here, and then a 14-inch as a 3rd floor tom. When I got that pad, it had this on the inside, which is a sort of foam inner, and that sat sort of here on the inside of that pad. It had a hole cut here for the hole that you see in the front of the pad, which is kind of a bit silly. It's a bit like a microphone hole, which you would not use on an electronic kit, but it kind of looks cool if you're into that sort of thing. So I've opened the pad and taken out the foam. Initially the foam has a hole cut here, and you can see underneath what used to be a mount for a trigger, and that was a metal mount that was welded onto the batter piece of metal. And it's just the same as the one under here, which you can't really see, but there was a second option for a mount there for a trigger, sorry. So there's the yellow trigger, and you can see the black mount sitting under it. And there was a second one just here. And when I got it, this trigger had stopped working. Well, the fella I bought it off had mounted a little square trigger on a piece of foam that was set into this pad, this mount here. And I don't like using this as a tom because it's, you know, it's got that other piece at the front of it. And so I've decided to make this the kick pad on this kit, and I'm going to use that pad down there as the third floor tom, so it sort of matches with all the other drums. But yeah, the way that this was set up with the metal mount here for another trigger was a bit annoying, because the bass drum beaters are going to hit pretty much onto that, and it was risen up a fair bit. It was about, all you can see over there, that it sticks up about maybe 2 or so centimeters, and the beaters would have actually pushed the mesh head onto that metal mount. So I took the head off, took the little trigger out, threw that away. I took one of the foam trigger mounts off of another drum, a spare 2-box pad that I've got, mounted that back in the original position, the same as this one is on this pad, which is down the bottom there somewhere. And I'm not very good at electronics, so I just cut the trigger wires and rejoined them to the new trigger by hand and put some electrical tape around there. I got a second piece of foam cut because this then had a hole, which I didn't really want, because the beaters again are going to hit onto this sort of weak spot in the middle. And I removed, with an angle grinder, removed that mount, just cut it out and ground it back so that it's flush with this bottom piece of metal now. So you can push on this pad quite hard and you're still not touching anything there, which is good. And the second piece of foam I bought was this stuff, which has no holes in it. And I was going to use that, but you know, then bought a third piece just to experiment. In the end, I found it's better with no foam in there. This will work exactly the same as this one does down here. So the trigger works. So now I'm just going to, I've tested the trigger and that works. So I'm going to mount this in the position of that one down there, and put this one from the bass drum up onto this snare stand.
Give me the sense to wonder if I'm free. Give me a sense of wonder to know I can be me. Give me the strength to hold my head up, spit back in their face. Don't need no key to unlock this door. Gotta break down the walls, break out of this bad place. Can I play with madness? The puppet stared at his crystal ball. Can I play with madness? There's no vision there at all. Can I play with madness? The puppet looks at him.
So that's it, it's put on. The floor tom, or the third floor tom, is on the stand. But I've noticed that without the foam in the middle, the beater does hit So if you do it soft, no worries. If you do it harder, it does hit. So I'm going to have to pull it apart again and put some foam into it. I might just cut up a smaller piece of this one and set that in there somehow.